Alright, so there's probably a few things that have happened since last time. I was working on the SDF stuff for a bit, so this is definitely not 6 months worth of work. I had put it down for a bit, but I added in some extra options. Some of this stuff won't make sense just to look at here, but I've got it where you don't have to hold down left click to fire, you can just toggle between the two. I probably need some better UI to indicate that is what's happening versus it just seeming like something's broken. You can pause when you go into the equipment screen, whereas before it would just slow down everything. These are kind of accessibility settings, these two scales here, but they're also just difficulty settings really. You can just speed up and slow down the game as much as you like. I've made it, you can make it where things are, you can kind of see it in the background, how much it affects just the overall game speed. Whereas this you can't really see just from the options menu. So you can make it where the enemies will come in much faster, but you don't get to move any faster, which is unlikely to be just impossible. But I also made it, we can set it down to 10%, which will just make the level take forever, but should be very possible. So probably need to tweak that. Tank glow is basically puts an outline or a glow behind each tank with a color to sort of help identify where they are. Certainly for some levels it can be a bit hard to see where your tanks are. I've also added in some music, as well as just sliders for all of these. So you can still... that all still happens even though the music's off. So, yeah. So that's been good. Also there's a resolution drop down now instead of full screen. As usual, the Unity resolution selection is always a bit finicky, so who knows. I also do have a higher frame rate screen, but I locked it to this just for recording. Yeah, so let's have a look at some of this stuff. Right now, some things are unlocked, but some things aren't. But this will now say, unlock with full health, Bolt Upgrade 1. So this sort of lets you know, like, hey, you didn't actually beat this level with full health before. So now that means, sort of lets you know that that's what you have to do to unlock that. Which was always in there, I just had zero UI to indicate that. So yeah, let's start. So that green is the tank glow, which we can now, if we go to gameplay, you can sort of see how intense you want that. We can also put on toggle. Actually, let's put on both, pause and equipment. So right now I'm not holding down, I just have to point. Then, oh no, that's... So if I go here, you can see everything. You can't even click to fire here, so... it's a little hard to show without the enemies being close by. But I guess, yeah, you can... No, can't see them. Anyway, so those are just two accessibility options that I sort of realized that should be in there. There's probably more things to be done, but these were fairly basic. I've also got it that you can press different 1, 2, and 3 at the moment to just toggle abilities as well. So probably the next big thing for accessibility would be remapping, but my whole input system is pretty janky, so really that needs changing anyway. So there we go. This is probably a better way of showing off that everything is indeed stopped. Also, this UI here probably needs an update, really. It's also a bit janky. So yeah, so that's all been good. So let's say, yeah, we won. It just freezes time for the enemies. Alright. Okay. So next level. So now that's sort of done correctly. Now it says, hey, you actually got these upgrades unlocked. Maybe this text and the whole UI needs to be a little bit better, but it's at least there's something there now to indicate, yes, you have got the upgrade, or no, you haven't got the upgrade. So yeah, those are probably some of the main things. There's also music for every level, which will hopefully, be it gives a bit more character to the game. This is obviously a music library that I had to buy, but so it's not custom music, which would be nice, but you know, work with what I've got. I've updated the credits, so you can see music is from Eric Matthias, soundimage.org. Sort of made some of the stuff a bit clearer. And some of that work is because this is now all open source. And it's on GitHub. So I'll put the URL in the description, but it's github.com/australian/Space Strife. I did have to rip out old paid assets and replace a whole bunch of things. The screenshot might technically have some old screen assets in there. Might have to update this at some point, but anyway, just to be safe, I did not include the old history. There is partially because there's a whole bunch of guff in there. I would have to rip out old large assets. The repo was getting a little big anyway. Because I was just being lazy and committing whole assets and the whole asset packs into it. So for one thing, it makes the repo a little bit smaller, and two, I'd have to figure out how to properly remove them just for licensing purposes. I do technically still have my old repo here, which has a lot more stuff in there. Honestly, I can't imagine there's much interesting just other than for my own benefit to go through and see how things have changed over time. But this is now the public one. I'm not expecting there to be like a community around this. This is honestly, the code is out there just for if anyone is curious. If they're feeling generous, suggestions are welcome, but I'm much more expecting it just to be like, if you want to see how things are done. Also, I'll have to expand this whole README here. It's quite limited at the moment. It's a lot of high level stuff, but with few examples. At the moment, I wasn't planning on putting the releases here, so I might have to update this. They're still just going to go straight onto itch. Itch has previous versions anyway. So, yeah. Feel free to check it out if you want. It should, I've tested it on Linux and Windows and Mac. I assume it should all work, as long as you have the same version of Unity. But yeah. I think the last thing, and this is a fairly small thing, I was going to go back and show you the some of the accessibility stuff as well as the lo-fi music changing. It's very important. So, I've turned up the music, it's a little bit louder. We can see it goes a little bit lo-fi and kind of eases back into not lo-fi when I unpause. It's pretty subtle. So I was ridiculously happy with it, unreasonably so, because it was actually fairly straightforward. Unity has some built-in stuff for it, which I'm 99% sure won't work in WebGL version. Maybe it's just because I'm using Firefox, but it is so minor that it allows me to get away with not having to recreate a lo-fi version of all of them. I'm sure it is using up some extra processing, but it's only whilst the game is paused anyway, so it should be fine. Yeah, we can tweak some of these settings here, but turn off some of this stuff. But what if we increase the game speed by this much? Let's see what happens. So it's just the game itself is just running at a faster speed. It's probably not the most accurate faster simulation because I'm just affecting Unity's built-in timescale. Which means probably there will technically be some difference, but I can slow down the enemy waves even though I'm moving faster. So now it looks I'm moving faster, but the enemy waves are moving slower, which, if you want to make the game basically easier for yourself, you just tweak some of these settings and you'll get more time to do things. But you can just do that without everything feeling like it's running in fast forward. You can just lower the speed. So yeah, I thought I'll just, rather than having set difficulty settings, I thought I should probably turn this music down a bit. It's alright, I'm recording this, I can change that myself. I thought Yeah, I just thought having your own ability to tweak settings would be easier than trying to come up with like predefined like easy, medium, difficult, hard, all of that. So yeah, there's definitely still more work to be done, especially towards the end of the game, but there is more dialogue. There should be at least some extra stuff that will show up. I don't record there's no scoring system really other than did you get a perfect health unlock for the end of the level. So yeah, I'm not too worried about that sort of stuff. Anyway, hope you found that interesting. There'll be more in future, hopefully. I've still got to finish this at some point, eh? See you in the next one. I know.